window as the cars go by. It's all we've been given, so you better start living. You better start living. Better start living right now. As days go by, I can feel it flying like a hand out the window in the wind. The cars go by, yeah, it's all we've been given, so you better start living right now. As days go by, yeah, these days go by. So take 'em by the hand, they're yours and mine. Take 'em by the hand and live your life. Take 'em by the hand, don't let 'em all fly by. Come on now. Yeah, come on now. Don't you know the days go by?
Thank God it's Friday and it's 3 p.m. I'm steady glancing at the clock, it's almost time for the weekend. I grab my iPhone, post a status for my friends, send a text before the day's end, cause I ain't trying to stay in.
Turn up the music while I'm fixing my hair. Calling my girls, where we go, I don't care. I got half a tank of gas and I'm hoping that it lasts. I'm ready for the weekend and I don't wanna stay.
Turn it up, like we don't care, and we can live it up, and go anywhere and watch us shake it up, the vibes in the air, and live it up,
is by design. I know everybody on this island has a role on this island, so maybe I can roll with mine. I can lead with pride, I can make us strong. I'll be satisfied if I play along, but the voice inside sings a different song. What is wrong with me? See the light as it shines on the sea. It's blinding, but no one knows how deep it goes. And it seems like it's calling out to me, so come find me and let me know what's beyond that line. Will I cross that line? The line where the sky hits the sea. It calls me, and no one knows how far it goes. If the wind in my sail on the sea stays behind me, one day I'll know how far I'll go.
You stumble through your days, got your head hung low, your sky's a shade of gray, like a zombie in a maze. You're asleep inside, but you can shake awake, 'cause you taste a dead man walking, thinking that's your only option. But you can flip the switch and brighten up your darkest day. Sun is up and the color's blinding, take a world and redefine it. Leave behind your narrow mind, you'll never be the same. Come alive, come alive. Go and light your light, let it burn so bright. Reaching up to the sky, and it's open wide. You're electrified, and the world becomes a fantasy, and you're more than you could ever be, 'cause you're dreaming with your eyes wide open. And you know you can't go back again to the world that you were living in, 'cause you're dreaming with your eyes wide open. So come alive. I see it in your eyes. You believe that lie, that you need to hide your face, afraid to step outside,
We just got a text. We need to find some hardworking FFA members to help us with our service project. Come on with us.
I am capable, we are unstoppable. It starts with you, it starts with me. Shape the future, aspire greater. It starts with us, it starts with we. Together we stand, united together. We better this land.
Hey, y'all, come on in.
Better this land. Rise up to the challenges, strive for greatness. I can, but together we will. I can, but together we will. I can, we will. Be the change we wanna see. I can, we will. Step up and leave a legacy. I can, we will. Be the change we wanna see. Be the change we wanna see. Step up and leave a legacy. Embrace our difference, unite in similarities. See your potential, discover your ability. Where we live and where we lead, where we serve every single day. Our jackets, our standards, our talents lead the way. I can, we will make the promise of better days. Make the promise of better days. I can, we will. Be the change we wanna see. I can, we will. Step up and leave a legacy. I can, we will. Be the change we wanna see. Be the change we wanna see. Step up and leave a legacy. We're all different, we're all unique. But when we come together, we can't be beat. Create a bigger impact. In fact, if I believe we can, we will be the change we wanna see. I am powerful, you are powerful. Add it up and we're unstoppable. Together we're stronger than as individuals. Achieve a common goal. Unbelievable. I can, we will. Be the change we wanna see. I can, we will. Step up and leave a legacy. I can, we will. Be the change we wanna see. Be the change we wanna see. Step up and leave a legacy. I can, we will. Be the change we wanna see. I can, we will. Step up and leave a legacy. I can, we will. Be the change we wanna see. Be the change we wanna see. Step up and leave a legacy. We're all different, we're all unique. But when we come together, we can't be beat. Create a bigger impact. In fact, if I believe we can, we will be the change we wanna see. I am powerful, you are powerful. Add it up and we're unstoppable. Together we're stronger than as individuals. Achieve a common goal. Unbelievable. I can, we will. Be the change we wanna see. Be the change we wanna see. Step up and leave a legacy.
Ladies and gentlemen, join me in showing respect and admiration as the Ottawa FFA chapter posts our nation's colors, and Parker Rice of the Clay Center FFA chapter and Joseph Bowden of the South Barber FFA chapter sing the Star-Spangled Banner.
gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Breathing you in when I want you out, finding our truth in a hope of doubt, lying inside our quiet drama, wearing your heart like a stolen dream, opening skies with your broken keys. No one can blind us any longer. We'll run where lights won't chase us, hide where love can save us. I will never let you go. We'll run where lights won't chase us, hide where love can save us. I will never let you go. Breathing you in when I want you out, finding our truth in a hope of doubt, lying inside our quiet drama. Breathing you in when I want you out, finding our truth in a hope of doubt, lying inside our quiet drama, wearing your heart like a stolen dream, opening skies with your broken keys. No one can blind us any longer. We'll run where lights won't chase us, hide where love can save us. I will never let you go. We'll run where lights won't chase us, hide where love can save us. I will never let you go. We'll run where lights won't chase us, hide where love can save us. I will never let you go. Breathing you in when I want you out, finding our truth in a hope of doubt, lying inside our quiet drama.
The convention hall will come to order. We are now holding the opening session of the 90th Kansas FFA Convention. Mr. Vice President, are all officers at their stations?
I shall call the roll of officers, determine if they're at their stations, and report back to you, Mr. President. The Sentinel.
Station by the door.
Your duties there?
Through this door pass many friends of the FFA. It is my duty to see that the door is open at all times and that they are welcome. I care for the meeting room and paraphernalia. I keep the room comfortable and assist the president in maintaining order.
The reporter.
The reporter is stationed by the flag.
Why by the flag?
As the flag covers the United States of America, so I strive to inform the people, in order that every man, woman, and child may know that the FFA is a national organization whose reach is from the state of Alaska to the Virgin Islands, and from the states of Maine to Hawaii.
The treasurer.
Stationed at the emblem of Washington.
Your duties there?
I keep a record of receipts and disbursements, just as Washington kept his farm accounts, carefully and accurately. I encourage thrift among the members and strive to build up our financial standings through savings and investments. George Washington was better able to serve his country because he was financially independent.
The secretary.
Stationed by the ear of corn.
Your duties there?
I keep an accurate record of all meetings and correspond with other secretaries wherever corn is grown and FFA members meet.
The advisor.
Here by the owl.
Why stationed by the owl?
The owl is a time-honored emblem of knowledge and wisdom. Being older than the rest of you, I am asked to advise you from time to time as a need arises. I hope that my advice will always be based on true knowledge and ripen with wisdom. Mr. Vice President, why do you keep the plow at your station?
The plow is a symbol of labor and tillage of the soil. Without labor, neither knowledge nor wisdom can accomplish much. My duties require me to assist at all times in directing the work of our organization. I preside over meetings in the absence of our president, whose place is beneath the rising sun.
Why is the president so stationed?
The rising sun is a token of a new era in agriculture. If we will follow the leadership of our president, we shall be led out of the darkness of selfishness and into the glorious sunlight of brotherhood and cooperation. Mr. President, all officers are at their stations.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The secretary will call the roll of members.
I am pleased to announce that at this, the opening session of the 90th Kansas FFA Convention, there are 1,338 advisors, members, and guests present, Mr. President.
Thank you. FFA members, why are we here? To practice brotherhood, honor agricultural opportunities and responsibilities, and develop those qualities of leadership which an FFA member should possess. May we accomplish our purposes. I now declare this the opening session of the 90th Kansas FFA Convention, duly open for the transaction of business or attention to any matters which may properly be presented. Indiana Jones has been a favorite character of mine for a long time. He always had a respect for the different artifacts and treasures he sought. Like when Belloc took the Jovito idol, he was quick to tell him how it belonged in a museum. There was always competition, like Belloc, seeking to prevent the artifacts from going to a museum, usually so they could sell them on the black market and use their powers for evil. In addition to the competition, there were always traps set to prevent anyone from finding the artifacts. Indy faced a gaping pit, a boulder rolling to crush him, and poison darts just to retrieve the idol. Over the course of the series, Indy avoided many bad guys and many traps. These were the adventures of Indiana Jones. This week is a celebration of the year-long adventures of Kansas FFA. As we begin our celebration tonight, It is an honor to have someone who has had their share of adventures with the FFA as our 2016-2017 Kansas FFA Treasurer, Miss Caitlin Bonenblust. Please join me in welcoming Caitlin to the stage for the convention invocation.
Please bow your heads with me. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing everyone to convention safely today. I pray that when we're here that you can just continue to provide that safety to each of us. I also pray that you can give patience and calmness and peace to everyone involved in the convention, and that everything that is said in this convention and on K-State's campus is just said in a way that people are encouraged and uplifted. I pray that as we all leave this convention, we can leave with things in mind that we can go home to our communities and act on, and just be in our communities and be a voice and be young people who are ready to move the world and move in their communities. Thank you for this opportunity to come together and just celebrate each other's successes, and I pray that this week will just be a blessing to each of us. Thank you for all that you do and how you love us. In your name I pray, amen.
Caitlin, thank you for your time today and for serving Kansas FFA as one of your adventures. Whether serving as an officer or helping out as an alumna, you have always led through service and a kind heart. We are grateful for the time you spent impacting those around you and truly empowering everyone you interact with. Please accept this token of our appreciation for your time. Kansas FFA members have continued to grow in and out of the jackets since 1928. Through premier leadership, personal growth, and career success, our organization has prepared us for the future challenges that the agricultural industry will face. As our industry is growing, so is our organization. The Kansas FFA Association has grown to more than 9,600 members, and our strength continues to improve in various areas, including national events. While we are in attendance this week, it is important that we continue this outstanding image by taking advantage of each opportunity to show our pride and traditions of FFA through our actions as members. Make sure to be in attendance of the entire duration of as many sessions as possible. While in the sessions, be respectful and attentive as we hear messages from our guest speakers and recognize some great individuals for their deeds. Treat all McCain Auditorium staff, food service employees, hotel workers, and members of the Manhattan community with politeness and appreciation. Maintain proper conduct and positively represent the organization both in and out of the convention hall. Demonstrate that we believe in the future of FFA so that our actions will allow future FFA members to have the opportunity we have this week. Kansas FFA Convention and Kansas FFA members have a reputation of being very respectful, so let's continue to positively add to that this week. Now, it's time to kick off this opening session of this year's convention. Tonight, we will hear welcoming words from Dr. Dave Nichols, Professor of Animal Science and Industry here at Kansas State University. Then, we have the opportunity to welcome new chapters into our association by presenting them with their chapter charters. The top Creed speakers will be announced, and our Kansas FFA officer candidates will have the opportunity to showcase their public speaking abilities. Following that is the culmination of one adventurer who serves as the 2017-2018 Kansas FFA Secretary, Miss Marie Reveles, as she delivers her retiring address. Finally, let's hear the inspiring words of our session's keynote speaker, United States Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue. FFA members, advisors, and guests, let's get ready for an exciting first session. Growing up, my family have always been K-State fans. We would always save time in our days for the entire family to sit down and watch the game, whether that be basketball or football. Sometimes we even adventured to the games themselves. Today, we all have the privilege of being in the home of the Wildcats. We are just 2 miles from Bill Snyder Family Stadium and Bramlage Coliseum, where our Wildcats play ball. However, the most exciting part is that we have a Wildcat here with us today. Dr. Dave Nichols is originally from Brookston, Indiana. He grew up on a commercial beef cattle, swine, and crop operation. Dr. Nichols earned his bachelor's degree in animal science before pursuing his master's and PhD here at Kansas State University. Dr. Nichols has been at K-State teaching in the College of Agriculture's Animal Sciences and Industry Department since 1981. Dr. Nichols loves sharing agriculture and K-State with students from all backgrounds. In his free time, he operates the A&D Ranch near Manhattan, Kansas. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Nichols to the stage.
Thank you. I'm not sure Eli was quite honest with me when he asked me to do this. So just a small group. But the students are really good back here because they say, well, you've taught more students than are in that hall. That was nice. But the next student said, and you also taught their parents. So, and that's right. So thank you, Eli, for the kind introduction. When Eli asked me to do this, I probably should have paid a little closer attention. But I do want to tell you how honored I am to be asked, and what a great organization you have. I've taught over 10,000 students at Kansas State University. That means I'm old and have a big class. But part of that is the opportunity to work with so many wonderful young people. Being on stage in McCain makes me a little nervous. The last time I was here, I got my PhD. Some of you didn't know McCain was built then. I make my living teaching students, but I'm so humbled tonight to welcome you to Kansas State. And let me sincerely welcome you to Kansas State. It's always a great pleasure to have students on campus. It's been a little quiet the last couple weeks. Had a library fire, but outside of that, it's been pretty quiet. But it's great to have FFA back on campus and 4-H back on campus. Since this evening, we had one of the greatest events we could have possibly had at the Stout Center, and you're truly going to enjoy sunny Purdue later. I hope your time at K-State will be a great experience. And always remember, we are the first and best land-grant university. Being a land-grant university, we pride ourselves on being the people's university. We strive for excellence in research, extension, and outreach. In my particular area, we place a high priority on teaching. I've been here a long time, and I've taught several of the instructors in the room here tonight. And I look forward to having several of you in class in the future. I had Eli this last semester. My purpose here is to welcome you, but it also have another purpose. And I want to congratulate you. In the next few days, you're going to celebrate chapter successes. You're going to honor some outstanding members. You're going to elect new leadership and shape the direction of your future. And you have the opportunity to feed the hungry. I'm especially proud of your food packaging event. Just today, FFA members packaged more than 25,000 meals to feed the hungry. Give yourself a big round of applause for that. As I said, I've been around a while. But take this from someone who has been around. When you look back on the width and breadth of your life, I'm quite certain we'll be judged by what we gave more than what we got. I wake up every morning excited and enthused. See, I'm lucky. I work in agriculture. I get to teach young people. Particularly, I work in animal agriculture. And I hope you find that passion that makes every day a great one. I'll close this evening's welcome with a quote from President Teddy Roosevelt. And Teddy Roosevelt had many great quotes, but one of my favorites was, "Far and away, the best price that life has to offer is the chance to work hard at work worth doing." What could be more noble, more great, more honest, more sincere than working with agriculture? Good luck and have a great convention. Thank you very much.
Dr. Nichols, your support of the FFA in agriculture is immense. We appreciate the work you've done at Kansas State University to teach and build strong advocates for agriculture. Your knowledge and ability to share it truly serves everyone you interact with. Thank you for welcoming the Kansas FFA Convention to the university, and please accept this token of our appreciation.
Thank you very much.
Step up and leave a legacy.
Think back to a time growing up when you got to open a gift. There was always a chance that you were going to receive exactly what you were hoping for. And for this, there was a sense of excitement. Whether we got socks or that new video game, there was still the thrill of receiving something new. This same sense of excitement to find our new things can be found within new members as we welcome them to our association. Madam Secretary, please read the names of the chapters receiving their charters this year.
There are 14 chapters receiving their Kansas FFA Association charters. Golden Plains, Junction City, Linden, Nemaha Central, Belle Plaine, Cheney, the Fowler FFA chapter, the Renwick FFA chapter, the Sublette FFA chapter, the Thomas More Prep FFA chapter, the Victoria FFA chapter, the Weskin FFA chapter, the Wichita Southeast FFA chapter, Please join me in another round of applause as we welcome these chapters into our association.
Step up and leave a legacy.
Growing up, there were many times where I went on adventures with my brothers, and it was not uncommon to encounter a slightly perilous or thrilling situation. There was a tradition for handling these situations. If it was more on the thrilling side, by default, my older brother would step up. This was because if it sounded remotely fun, he wanted to try it. If it was more on the risky side, like crossing the creek in a new area, we went to a vote. Being democratic, everyone got one vote. Since there were 3 of us, the system was foolproof. We never had a tie. My younger brother would always vote for my older brother, and my older brother and I would always vote for our youngest brother. Long story short, there was always one of my brothers who would try something before I did. Just like this tradition we had as brothers in handling a situation, These next FFA members have taken part in a long-standing tradition, the FFA Creed. This next group of members have been selected as our state's top 4 Creed speakers. Each will receive a plaque and a cash award. The individual selected as the Creed-speaking Leadership Development Event winner will represent Kansas and Indianapolis at National Convention in October. The Creed-speaking LDE Award is sponsored by the family of Robert and Melva Armbruster in their honor, and Melva Armbruster is here to help present the award. Madam Secretary, please read the names of the finalists in the Creed-speaking LDE.
The top 4 individuals in the 2018 State Creed Speaking Leadership Development in ranking order are: receiving 4th place is Sydney Bacon from the South Haven FFA chapter. Third place honors goes to Kerrigan Dunstan from the Rock Hills FFA chapter. The 2nd place winner is Shonda Rutledge from the Riverton FFA chapter. And your 2018 State Creed Speaking winner is Clay Brilhart from the Uniontown FFA chapter. Let's congratulate our Creed finalists as they exit the stage.
Our Creed winner, Clay Brilhart, will now present the FFA Creed.
The FFA Creed, written by E.M. Tiffany. I believe in the future of agriculture, with a faith born not of words, but of deeds. Achievements won by the present and past generations of agriculturists, in the promise of better days through better ways, even as the better things we now enjoy have come to us from the struggles of former years. I believe that to live and work on a good farm, or to be engaged in other agricultural pursuits, is pleasant as well as challenging, for I know the joys and discomforts of agricultural life and hold an inborn fondness for those associations which, even in hours of discouragement, I cannot deny. I believe in leadership from ourselves and respect from others. I believe in my own ability to work efficiently and think clearly, with such knowledge and skill as I can secure, and in the ability of progressive agriculturists to serve our own and the public interest in producing and marketing the product of our toil. I believe in less dependence on begging and more power in bargaining, in the life abundant and enough honest wealth to help make it so for others as well as myself, in less need for charity and more of it when needed, in being happy myself and playing square with those whose happiness depends upon me. I believe that American agriculture can and will hold true to the best traditions of our national life, and that I can exert an influence in my home and community, which will stand solid for my part in that inspiring task. Thank you.
Good job, Clay. The courage and precision that you have demonstrated by reciting the Creed shows that you have the drive to take full advantage of opportunities. We are excited to see how you continue to grow and follow your interests as you pursue many new and exciting adventures in the FFA. Congratulations on your success in the Creed Speaking Leadership Development event, and best of luck at National Convention this fall. In 1803, Thomas Jefferson signed off on the Louisiana Purchase. Shortly thereafter, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark set out to explore the new territory of the United States expansion. This expansion built our country into what it is today. They explored the land, looking for opportunities for industry, cataloged plants and animals, marked potential trade routes, and made connections with the Native American tribes. This exploration of new territory came with challenges and fear. In the end, the expedition returned safely, allowing our country its growth. This next group of individuals has decided to expand their adventure by running for Kansas FFA office. They have faced their own set of challenges and have shown their desire to serve Kansas FFA on the adventure of a lifetime. Kansas FFA officer candidates have shown their commitment by presenting prepared and extemporaneous speeches, participating in 3 days of interviews, and demonstrating their facilitation capabilities. They have invested much of their efforts into the hope of serving Kansas FFA as a 2018-2019 Kansas FFA officer. There are 11 candidates this year, which, in accordance with Article 6, Section A, Part 3 of the Kansas FFA Constitution, requires the nominating committee to form a slate of 6 officers with the advice and consent of the delegate body. The nominating committee will be collecting the delegate input at this time, as these candidates share why they deserve to serve our association. Please join me in showing our appreciation for our state officer candidates and their dedication to the FFA in a round of applause. I would ask that all delegates please find their seats and that all non-delegates please exit the delegate section. Would the courtesy corps please seal the auditorium and inspect the delegate area. At this time, will the secretary call the roll of chapters?
When I call the chapter, please all delegates stand and state the number of delegates that you have for your chapter. The Abilene FFA chapter. The Altoona Midway FFA chapter. The Anderson County FFA chapter. The Arkansas City FFA chapter. The Atchison County FFA chapter. The Atwood FFA chapter. The Axtell FFA chapter. The Belle Plaine FFA chapter. The Beloit FFA chapter. The Blue Valley FFA chapter. The Bluestem FFA chapter. The Brewster FFA chapter. The Buckland FFA chapter. The Bueller FFA chapter. The Burlington FFA chapter. The Caney FFA chapter. The Central FFA chapter. The Central Heights FFA chapter. The Central Plains FFA chapter. The Centralia FFA chapter. The Center FFA chapter. the Chaparral FFA chapter, the Chapman FFA chapter, the Chase County FFA chapter, the Cherryville FFA chapter, the Chetopa FFA chapter, the Cheyenne FFA chapter, the Cheney FFA chapter, the Cimarron FFA chapter, the Clay Center FFA chapter, the Clifton Clyde FFA chapter, the Coffeyville FFA chapter, the Colby FFA chapter, the Columbus FFA chapter, the Concordia FFA chapter, the Council Grove FFA chapter, the Crest FFA chapter, the Dodge City FFA chapter, the Donovan West FFA chapter, the Elk Valley FFA chapter, the Elkhart FFA chapter, the El Saline FFA chapter, the Ellenwood FFA chapter, the Ellis FFA chapter, the Ellsworth FFA chapter, the Emporia FFA chapter, the Erie FFA chapter, the Eudora FFA chapter, the Eureka FFA chapter, the Fairfield FFA chapter, the Flint Hills FFA chapter, the Fort Scott FFA chapter, the Fowler FFA chapter, the Frankfurt FFA chapter, the Fredonia FFA chapter, the Garden City FFA chapter, the Girard FFA chapter, the Gossel FFA chapter, the Golden Plains FFA chapter, the Goodland FFA chapter, the Great Bend FFA chapter, the Greeley County FFA chapter, the Hanover FFA chapter, the Haven FFA chapter, the Hayes FFA chapter, the Harrington FFA chapter, the Hiawatha FFA chapter, the Hill City FFA chapter, the Hillsborough FFA chapter, the Hodgman County FFA chapter, the Holcomb FFA chapter, the Holton FFA chapter, the Horton FFA chapter, the Hoxie FFA chapter, the Hugoton FFA chapter, the Humboldt FFA chapter, the Independence FFA chapter, the Inman FFA chapter, the Iola FFA chapter, the Jackson Heights FFA chapter, the Jayhawk Lynn FFA chapter, the Jefferson West FFA chapter, the Junction City FFA chapter, the Kingman FFA chapter, the Labette County FFA chapter, the La Crosse FFA chapter, the Lakeside FFA chapter, the Lawrence FFA chapter, the Lawrence Free State FFA chapter, the Lebo FFA chapter, the Lynn FFA chapter, the Little River FFA chapter, the Logan FFA chapter, the Lewisburg FFA chapter, the Linden FFA chapter, the Mays FFA chapter, the Manhattan FFA chapter, the Meridazine Valley FFA chapter, the Marion FFA chapter, the Marvinton Valley FFA chapter, the Marysville FFA chapter, the McLouth FFA chapter, the McPherson FFA chapter, the Medicine Lodge FFA chapter, Minneapolis FFA chapter, the Mission Valley FFA chapter, the Mountain Ridge FFA chapter, the Natoma FFA chapter, the Nemaha Central FFA chapter, the Neodesha FFA chapter, the Ness City FFA chapter, the Newton FFA chapter, the North Lyon County FFA chapter, the Northern Valley FFA chapter, Norton FFA chapter, the Oakley FFA chapter, the Oberlin FFA chapter, the Olathe North FFA chapter, the Onega FFA chapter, the Osawatomie FFA chapter, the Ottawa FFA chapter, the Oxford FFA chapter, the Palco FFA chapter, the Paola FFA chapter, the Peabody FFA chapter, the Phillipsburg FFA chapter, the Pike Valley FFA chapter, the Plainville FFA chapter, the Pleasant Ridge FFA chapter, the Pleasanton FFA chapter, the Prairie View FFA chapter, the Pretty Prairie FFA chapter, the Quinter FFA chapter, the Renwick FFA chapter, the Republic County FFA chapter, the Riley County FFA chapter, the Riverside FFA chapter, the Riverton FFA chapter, the Rock Creek FFA chapter, the Rock Hills FFA chapter, the Rossville FFA chapter, the Royal Valley FFA chapter, the Rural Vista FFA chapter, the Russell FFA chapter, the Sabetha FFA chapter, the Salina Central FFA chapter, the Satanta FFA chapter, the Scott City FFA chapter, the Seaman FFA chapter, the Sedan FFA chapter, the Silver Lake FFA chapter, the Skyline FFA chapter, the Smith Center FFA chapter, the Solomon FFA chapter, the South Barber FFA chapter, the South Central FFA chapter, the South Haven FFA chapter, the Southeast FFA chapter, the Southeast of Saline FFA chapter, the Southern Cloud FFA chapter, the Southern Coffee FFA chapter, the Southern Lyon County FFA chapter, Southwestern Heights FFA chapter, Spring Hill FFA chapter, the St. Francis FFA chapter, St. Mary's FFA chapter, the St. Paul FFA chapter, the Stafford FFA chapter, the Stanton County FFA chapter, the Stockton FFA chapter, the Sublette FFA chapter, the Sylvan Lucas FFA chapter, the Syracuse FFA chapter, the Thomas More Prep FFA chapter, the Thunder Ridge FFA chapter, the Tonganoxie FFA chapter, the Troy FFA chapter, the Twin Valley FFA chapter, the Udall FFA chapter, the Ulysses FFA chapter, the Uniontown FFA chapter, the Valley Heights FFA chapter, the Victoria FFA chapter, the Wabunsie FFA chapter, the Waukene FFA chapter, the Wamego FFA chapter, the Washburn Rural FFA chapter, the Washington County FFA chapter, the Wellington FFA chapter, the Wellsville FFA chapter, the Weskin FFA chapter, the West Elk FFA chapter, the West Franklin FFA chapter, the Western Plains FFA chapter, the Wichita County FFA chapter, the Wichita Southeast FFA chapter, the Wilson FFA chapter, the Winfield FFA chapter, the Yates Center FFA chapter. Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. At this time, will the Courtesy Corps please prepare the delegate section? Do any delegates not have their input form? Please do not mark these input forms until the candidates have spoken. The state officer candidates will now present their speeches. I will introduce the candidates in alphabetical order. Delegates, after each candidate has spoken, please mark your candidate input form upon how your interactions rate the candidate's ability to serve based on your interactions this afternoon and their speech this evening. Please check only one of the 4 boxes beside each candidate and place your mark completely within that box. The compiled delegate evaluations will be presented to the nominating committee before they deliberate and present the final slate of state officers. Please hold all applause until all candidates have spoken. I now call our state officer candidates to the stage. Our first candidate will be Joshua Clark.
Can I tell you a secret? I have no idea what I want to do for the rest of my life. Want to know something else? That's okay. Think back to a conversation you had with a school counselor. It go a little something like, you should probably start taking some college visits. Or what about, I really don't know if this elective will fit in the Regent's recommended curriculum. Yeah, that is what conversations were like with my high school counselors. There was a big push towards the traditional four-year college education. It was intense. It was overwhelming. I mean, really, who in this room knows with conviction that the path they're on right now is even the right one? I'm 17. The rest of my life is a long time. Now, don't get me wrong. I've spent a lot of time pondering various ideas on what I could do after high school. I could go down to the Harley-Davidson school in Fort Scott to become a motorcycle mechanic. I could join the armed forces and serve this country while trying to figure out who I really am. Or I could become an ag teacher like my dad. I'm certain of two things, though. One, I definitely don't want to sit behind a desk all day. And two, I want to continue to keep agriculture a large part of who I am. According to Webster's dictionary, success is the fact of getting or achieving wealth, respect, or fame. If that's the true definition of success, I want nothing to do with it. I want to be confident in who I am. I want to be passionate about my job, and I want to contribute to making this world a better place. So why is it today's society wants us to fit into a cookie-cutter mold? I'm not a cookie-cutter kid. Are you? Kansas FFA, you don't have to know what your future holds for you. Don't let us be defined by some ACT score, but instead, let us be defined by our acts every single day. Use your talents. Use the knowledge learned in this blue corduroy. And let me serve you this year as a Kansas FFA officer. And together, we will rewrite the definition of success.
Please hold all applause until all the candidates have spoken. Delegates, please mark your candidate input forms in the respective areas now. Our next candidate is Garrett Craig.
We all have them. We all have moments that we reflect upon as important moments in our life. For me, some of mine were my time spent growing up with my Grandpa Dave. Grandpa Dave had a love for agriculture and the rural way of life. He was at one time a farmer and a carpenter. A great afternoon spent with my grandpa was going down to the creek, and we would fish for hours. His love for fishing was so great that you better not talk out loud when next to him, because it might scare away all of his fish. Grandpa also had a passion for service. He provided knowledge and leadership that allowed my family's church to build on a new addition that we currently enjoy. He also donated numerous hours of his time to building a food pantry and library for underprivileged citizens in a rural community. He also had an ability to bring out the best in others. He had this mysterious way of conveying these life lessons that would hopefully make his grandkids better people. For instance, he never would use a gas grill because they cooked the food too fast and they didn't taste as good. As I look back on it now, I think that part of it was he was just trying to teach all of us a little something about patience. He could also bring out the best in people by making them smile when he sang. He was part of a quartet that brought music to our community for years. His love for music was so inspiring that it made me, a pretty lowly Southern Clay County farm kid, pursue the lead in our school's musical of Footloose. A love for agriculture, a passion for service, and the ability to bring out the best in other people. My grandfather would not have called himself a leader, but as I see it, he definitely was. Those things to me define a leader. His passion for agriculture, his love for service, and his ability to bring out the best in others. I want to be that kind of leader. Now, as a personal goal, I hope to exhibit these qualities in whatever setting I'm in. But Kansas FFA, I would be truly honored if you would allow me to leave a legacy like my grandfather's while serving you as a Kansas State FFA officer. Thank you.
Thank you. Please mark your candidate input forms in their respective areas. Our next candidate is Miranda Deppenbush.
Other than being an FFA, many people know I'm in 4-H, FBLA, I live on a farm, and I have a twin sister. But something not everybody knows about me is that I love Disney movies. More specifically, I love Disney princesses. A princess is something I have always wanted to become, not only because of the beautiful gowns, amazing jewelry, and cute little critters as sidekicks, but I love each individual princess's stories and lessons they've learned along their journeys. The princesses in the movies have amazing qualities and lessons to share. For example, Rapunzel, who has a great sense of adventure, even though she has been sheltered from the world almost her entire life. For those who weren't raised on a farm, joining FFA is a new adventure to take, but it is an exciting adventure, and I'd like to share that excitement with our state. Then we have Mulan, who shows a great amount of bravery fighting in a war full of men for her family's honor. In FFA, we are brave to try new career development events, volunteer to be a head of a committee, or apply for an office position. I'd like to help Kansas FFA members take those next steps in their FFA careers. Another princess with amazing qualities is Tiana. She had big dreams and worked hard even when the odds were against her. She persevered through it all and got her dreams in the end. In FFA, we work hard to advocate for agriculture, even when there are people who are against what we do. It is our job to educate people about our industry and this organization, to let them know how much of an impact we are able to make. Like all princesses who have specific missions to complete, it is our mission to prepare students to become problem solvers, leaders, entrepreneurs, and the next generation of agriculturalists. Like all princesses who set goals and make plans, I have big ideas for Kansas FFA. If I'm elected as a Kansas State FFA officer, I have no doubt we will be headed for happily ever after. Thank you.
Delegates, please mark your candidate input forms in the respective area. Our next candidate is Michael Dowd.
2 weeks ago, I was scrambling to get everything ready for my graduation party when the unthinkable happened. Blaze, my 5-year-old English Springer Spaniel, came sulking home, tail between his legs, covered in both mud and blood. Judging by the wounds, Blaze had been attacked by one of the neighbor's larger dogs, and Blaze was certainly not the victor. Throughout my entire life, I had never seen this dog shaken up this bad. Blaze could barely walk, so we rushed him to the vet, where they cleaned his wounds, put in stitches, and kept watch over him for 2 nights. On the day of my graduation party, Blaze was finally released from the vet. Upon his arrival, I wasn't sure what to expect. But as I walked towards the kennel door, I could hear his tail wagging ferociously against the kennel. Blaze was happy to see me, and in that moment, I knew that everything was going to be okay. But the next week did not come easy. Blaze had to be hand-fed twice a day as he wore the infamous cone of shame. This giant cone around his head caused for many problems throughout the week. At first, Blaze kept getting his cone caught on the kennel door. Because this cone went all the way around his head, it slightly impaired his vision, and often Blaze would turn around too quickly, only to hit someone and fall to the ground. But every time Blaze got caught or did something embarrassing, he would always turn around, wag his tail, and smile. The pain from the wounds and the embarrassment from the cone never dampened Blaze's positive and energetic spirit. It was that happy-go-lucky attitude that made Blaze's recovery process uplifting and incredibly humorous. I'm happy to say that Blaze no longer has to wear the cone of shame and is on his way to making a full recovery. Throughout the upcoming year of service, the state officer team will be faced with a multitude of challenges, both big and small. Rest assured, I have learned from my own best friend that positivity and encouragement are the best methods to conquering any hardship. More importantly, just as I stayed committed to nursing Blaze back to health, so too will I stay committed to serving the Kansas FFA Association even during our toughest challenges. With that being said, I humbly ask for your support in electing me as a 2018-2019 Kansas State FFA officer, and together we will take on every challenge with enthusiasm, just like Blaze. Thank you.
Delegates, please mark your candidate input forms in the respective area. Our next candidate is Gavin Fry.
Have you ever scrambled over a barbed wire fence? Sometimes you slip right over. Sometimes you get caught up, and every once in a while you flat out rip your pants. That's kind of how it is in the FFA. When you compete in a career development event or plan an activity, sometimes it goes off without a hitch, and other times, everything that can go wrong does. The same goes for being a leader in our organization. Simply stepping up to the front isn't good enough. A good leader must be willing to do whatever it takes to be successful, but also be able to learn from their own and others' mistakes. During the past 4 years of my FFA career, I've put in a lot of late nights and early mornings, setting up banquets, writing speeches, and preparing for and going to contests. Through these experiences, there is no doubt that I have learned the true value of hard work. Teddy Roosevelt said it best when he said, "Nothing worth having comes easy. It's all about what you're willing to put into it." I've carried these words with me through my time in FFA, which has pushed me to invest as much time as possible towards my goals. In most cases, my hard work is paid off. However, it goes without saying that I've seen my fair share of bumps along the way, from forgetting to set an alarm or trying to organize an event that just goes belly up, to a major catastrophe, such as taking off my FFA jacket in the prep room for state extemp speaking, and then getting halfway through my speech and looking down only to see nothing but a plain white dress shirt. Needless to say, I didn't make the finals. But I don't let that get me down. Mistakes happen. As long as I can learn from them, it's worth the risk of failure. And I want to help you cross your barbed wire fences this year in FFA. That is why you select me to serve on your Kansas FFA officer team, because I am willing to rip my pants for the FFA.
Delegates, please mark your candidate input forms in their respective areas. Our next candidate is Max Harmon.
The year was 2004. The mission, getting some apple slices. My qualifications, I was a hungry 4-year-old boy. Instead of asking mom for help, I decided to take matters into my own hands. I walk into the kitchen, searching for the perfect tool. Our apple core was missing in action, but I immediately spot the best tool for the job sitting in its place in the knife block. That's right, the meat cleaver. What could go wrong? I wanted to make these apple slices quick and easy, so only the biggest knife would do. I get the apple centered perfectly on the counter, and distinctly remember thinking to myself that I was going to do this right, and definitely not cut myself. It came as a big surprise then, when I'm halfway slicing through the apple, when I cut myself squarely on my left thumb's knuckle. Not too seriously, my thumb was still very much intact, but it was beginning to bleed profusely and quite painfully. Luckily, I found a solution. If I just shook the injured digit really fast, it didn't hurt nearly as bad. So that's how my mission for apple slices ended, with me running around the house flinging blood, until mom caught me and put a Band-Aid on the wound. Even though I failed the mission, I certainly learned my lesson. We never know what missions life will present us, big or small. But pass or fail, we always learn from the experience. This type of experiential learning is part of what makes FFA unique, and FFA is full of potential missions, should we choose to accept them. So run for that leadership position, commit to participating in a CDE, or start and grow your SAE. Whether we win or lose isn't our metric of success. By accepting the mission, we commit to learning and leading, gaining knowledge and experience that are far more valuable than any title or medal. FFA provides leaders in our organization with a mission statement of its own, to make a positive impact on the lives of students by developing their potential for premier leadership, personal growth, and career success through agricultural education. Kansas FFA, join me in accepting that mission. Together we can make a tremendous positive impact this year. I want to help all of you in accepting more of your own missions, and am ready to accept the biggest mission of my leadership as a state officer. So elect me, Max Harmon, as one of your 2018-2019 Kansas FFA state officers. And together, we can maximize our organization and maximize our missions. Thank you.
Please hold all applause until all candidates have spoken. Delegates, please mark your candidate input forms in their respective areas. Our next candidate is Kristen Isle.
One, two, three, four, five, six is my preferred placement of an officer team. Beginning with President and ending with Sentinel, I have began my class with the President, who is stationed by the rising sun and will lead us from the darkness of selfishness and into the glorious sunlight of brotherhood and cooperation. Following suit is the Vice President, who is stationed by the plow, because without labor, neither knowledge nor wisdom could accomplish much. Following next is the Secretary, who is stationed by the ear of corn and keeps a record of all meetings and corresponds with other secretaries. Next up is the Treasurer, who is stationed by the emblem of Washington and encourages thrifts among the members and strives to build up our financial standings through savings and investments. Next is the Reporter, who is stationed by the flag and lets every man, woman, and child know that the FFA is a national organization. And lastly, but not least, is the Sentinel, who is stationed by the door so that all friends of the FFA may be welcome. Notice I am not giving grant nor criticism for any office, because no office is greater than another. This is just the chronological order as stated in the manual. Oral reasons is one of many green hands' biggest fears. And while most of those green hands feared giving that reason set in front of that reasons taker, my actual fear was about writing them. Because I could place a class, whether it be right or wrong, but I couldn't tell you why. And that makes it a little bit difficult when writing a set. So I began to ask myself, why does this horse go on top? And why does this horse go on bottom? And I found that not only did this help me to write my reasons, but it also helped me to place a class more correctly. Then I began to find myself using this in even my life decisions. My junior year, the parliamentary procedure team I was a part of made it to state. And state convention that year just happened to overlap with my cousin's wedding. So now I had a choice: go to his wedding or go to convention. And I found myself asking, why should I choose one over the other? And I realized on my parliamentary procedure team, there were 5 other members just as excited as I was to make it to state, and 5 other members relying on me to be there. So after speaking to my cousin and making sure that it was okay with him, I went to convention. So while horse judging was just a career development event designed for me to learn how to judge horses based on their performance and conformation, it helped me learn a way to make difficult decisions. And I am glad out of all the decisions I have ever made, joining FFA was one of them. So please, find a spot in your 2018-2019 Kansas State Officer placement for me, Chrissy Isle, to be a part of the team that serves you. Thank you.
Delegates, please mark your candidate input forms in the respective area. Our next candidate is Emily Meyer.
I remember the day like it was yesterday. 14-year-old Emily Meyer, surrounded by 300 other freshmen in a crowded gymnasium, all sporting the typical deer in the headlights look. I know that most of you will be able to relate to that feeling of terror I had at Green Hand Conference. I'm also pretty sure anyone who looked at me would have been frightened too. My hair was frizzy, I wore no makeup, and the only designer bags I owned were underneath my eyes. And then just like that, I was whisked away from my classmates and surrounded by complete strangers. In all honesty, there were times where I felt as if I would be no more than the shy, scared green hand who stood at the back of the crowd. Every time I opened my mouth to speak, my knees would shake and tremble. However, something inside of me compelled me to change. I wanted to be more, share more, do more. But how could I possibly change into the FFA member I wanted to be? I once read a story about a man who worked inside of his parents' garage only to face defeat after defeat. Although the outside world deemed him as an ordinary man, he had ideas that would revolutionize our world. Later, he would become responsible for creating one of the biggest monopolies in the technology sector we know today, Apple Incorporated. This man is none other than Steve Jobs. Like Steve Jobs, I faced my own set of obstacles during my time as an FFA member. From my days as a scared green hand to doubts of measuring up because of my background, I grew a desire to love and to lead in the FFA. Like Steve Jobs once said, to do great work is to love what you do. Just like him, we aspire to make our mark. Kansas FFA, I know the feeling all too well. To aspire to be someone like the leaders and the legends that have come before us, and wondering if you'll ever be there. Looking back, Green Hand Emily had no idea of the experiences that would wait for her. Through FFA, I have grown so much. Now the question is, are you ready to make that change for yourself? Let me help you make that transformation from ordinary to unforgettable. Thank you.
Delegates, please mark your candidate input forms in the respective areas. Our next candidate is Lucas Sebesta.
Life is a highway. I want to ride it all night long. If you're going my way, I want to drive it all night long. In Kansas, there are many kinds of roads. Country roads, paved blacktops, and two-lane highways. And even Interstate 70, the lifeline that connects our state to the east and the west coast, and provides opportunities at almost every mile to slow down, speed up, and change direction, and take a different route based on the guiding road signs along the way. Similarly, the song Life is a Highway, covered by the Rascal Flatts, can be used to describe the choices in our lives, providing a path back to our past actions, but more importantly, highlighting our future goals based upon the guiding road signs and our destination choices. As a 2018-2019 Kansas State FFA officer, it is my goal to be a guiding road sign to you to help you find your future direction. Whether you want to try a new CDE or give a speech to a local school board, these are choices, destination choices on the FFA highway that may open up a new route for you in the future. I faced a major point on the road at home with my sheep. Faced with the decision to continue using the same line of genetics or to take a risk on a different breeder and to improve the quality of my sheep and to become more competitive at the Kansas State Fair. With help from an important road sign, my cousin, I chose to go off the beaten path. He pointed me to several breeders to purchase my lambs from. As a result, my lambs placed higher than ever at the Kansas State Fair and the Kansas Junior Livestock Show. And this decision resulted in higher quality animals at home and a more enjoyable experience in the show ring. I'm ready to be your road sign, your guide on your FFA and agricultural education journey. As a Kansas State FFA officer, I will call back on my previous path and reflect on my past experiences in order to help you navigate the FFA highway and determine your future direction. Thank you.
Delegates, please mark your candidate input forms in the respective area. Our next candidate is Hunter Smith.
Here I am, driving my hog in the final round of senior showmanship at the Harper County Fair. The judge signals for me to pin my hog, which I do with ease. He then narrows it down to the top 5 finalists of the pin hogs and motions for me to come out of the pin and drive my hog towards him. I do so with confidence from 5 months of hard work. After a while, I start to realize that it's between me and another showman. Here we were battling it out, and I was sure I was going to win. The only problem was, he didn't pick me. See, forgetting to shut the gate behind me when I drove my hog out of the pin cost me from being senior showmanship champion. And I have relived this day over and over in my head since the day of the show, hoping to ensure it doesn't happen again. Now, in the show arena, I should have shut the gate behind me. But in life, sometimes it's not always the best decision to shut the gate. By leaving open the gate in life, many opportunities could arise. Are you interested in starting an SAE? Let's find a way for you to do so. I'm sure there are several people that are willing to help you get started, myself included. Other opportunities could be letting new friends walk through the gate and getting a chance to really know them. It is through the bonding of FFA members that we experience the most growth. Other advantages could be becoming a chapter officer or trying a new CDE that you've always wanted to compete at but never have. Aiden Chambers said it best when he said, "The course of our lives depends on what we do or don't do in a few seconds. A heartbeat, when we either seize the opportunity or just miss it. Miss the moment and you never get a chance again." In your jacket of corduroy blue, to yourself you must be true. By leaving open the gate, you're allowing for wondrous fate. FFA is a time to grow. You have no idea of where you can go. Truly, the future is open wide as we travel roads with friends by our side. Opportunities abound. Creative minds around. We can accomplish our goals as we journey forth, eager and bold. You have only a few years in the blue corduroy jacket, so don't wait and the opportunities pass. Step out of your comfort zone and enjoy the experience. Thank you.
Delegates, I have a hunch that you know what I'm going to say. Our next candidate will be Skylar Zinger.
It is no secret that my family is not, in any shape or form, athletically inclined. But what we lack in talent or skill, we make up for in our effort and coachability. So when my mother got me to step foot on the golf course for the first time in my life, I knew that things were about to get interesting. You ever hear the phrase, the blind leading the blind? My mother was going to do her best to teach me how to golf. After arriving to the golf course and renting our bucket of balls, we proceeded to the driving range because she wanted to take it easy on me. Following her instructions, I placed the tee in the ground, set the ball on top, grabbed a hold of my clubs, and got in position. I was thrilled that I was finally going to get my glory moment of yelling, "4!" So I brought my club back and swung forward with all my might. And as I was looking downrange to see just how far my ball had went, I remember hearing very distinct laughter behind me. I turn around, and there's my mother just pointing at the ground, too out of breath to even talk. I look down, and sure enough, there's my golf ball not 2 feet in front of me. But I swore that I saw something go flying downrange. It turns out that I had, but it wasn't my golf ball. Instead, it was the end of my dad's favorite driver that had somehow broken off and flew 50 feet downrange. Now, I might not be up to par when it comes to golfing, but I tend to be a little more serious when it comes to the FFA. I joined in the 8th grade, and although I had a good idea of how to get started, I still had obstacles to overcome if I wanted to grow further in this organization. After overcoming these obstacles, I was able to laugh about the hard times with the new friends I had made who felt more like a family. Through my years in the FFA, I have learned what it means to truly serve our members, as well as how to properly advocate our organization's most highly regarded values and what it takes to achieve the goals I have set for myself and within the teams I have been a part of. If elected to Kansas State FFA office, I will do my best to use the knowledge and skills I have gained to serve our members, our organization, and those who may benefit from an affiliation with the FFA. So Kansas FFA, let's make this year a hole-in-one. Thank you.
Congratulations to all of our candidates who have demonstrated their belief in excellence. Let's show them our appreciation for their hard work. Delegates, please pass your candidate input forms to the left side of the delegate section where they will be collected.
I am capable, we are unstoppable. It starts with you, it starts with me. Shape the future, aspire greater. It starts with us, it starts with we. Together we stand, united together. We better this land, better this land. Rise up to the challenges, strive for greatness. I can, but together we will. I can, but together we will. I can, we will. Be the change we want to see. I can, we will. Step up and leave a legacy. I can, we will. Be the change we want to see. Be the change we want to see. Step up and leave a legacy. Embrace our difference, unite in similarities. See your potential, discover your ability. Where we live and where we lead, where we serve every single day. Our jackets, our standards, our talents lead the way. I can, we will make the promise of better days. Make the promise of better days. I can, we will. Be the change we want to see. I can, we will. Step up and leave a legacy. I can, we will. Be the change we want to see. Be the change we want to see. Step up and leave a legacy. We're all different, we're all unique. But when we come together, we can't be beat. Create a bigger impact. In fact, if I believe we can, we will be the change we want to see. I am powerful, you are powerful. Add it up and we're unstoppable. Together we're stronger than as individuals. Achieve a common goal.
With the many adventures that Indiana Jones went on, there was always travel involved. Not just travel across the United States, but travel across the globe. These travels were long flights or time spent sailing the sea. While travel was sometimes smooth, there were almost always a challenge at the end of the travel. At the end of the day, Indiana Jones had traveled a long ways for his adventure. These next agricultural education programs will be recognized for their longevity and distance traveled. 100 years ago, the Smith-Hughes Act had been established, and 6 Kansas communities made the decision to support vocational education, specifically instruction in and about agriculture, development of career-ready skills, and leadership opportunities. These communities were approved for federal and state aid under the Smith-Hughes Act, and Kansas established its first set of 6 agricultural education programs, 5 of which are still active programs today. This evening, we would like to recognize those programs that have gone the distance. Madam Secretary, please read the names of the Kansas chapters and schools celebrating 100 years in their respective agricultural education programs.
There are 5 agriculture education programs that were established 100 years ago. The Arkansas City FFA chapter, the Chapman FFA chapter, formerly Dickinson County High School, the Fort Scott FFA chapter, the Garden City FFA chapter, the Tonganoxie FFA chapter, please join me in another round of applause as we celebrate their 100 years of agriculture education.
I can, we will. Be the
Please join me in welcoming Conrad Viner, Brianna Park, and Jarrett Fonensteel to the stage for a very special introduction.
Hello, I am Brianna Park.
I'm Conrad Viner.
And I'm Jarrett Fonensteel.
And
In high school, Marie was the girl that was involved in everything. Since freshman year of high school, she had a dream of being on this stage, and of course, she made it here. Many of my favorite moments in high school were made with her during FFA. For instance, on our way back from a livestock judging contest, our advisor decided to text Marie and make her jealous about the cutest baby goat we saw at the contest. Not to mention, she was in ag class, and there is a strict no-phone policy at Hayes High School. When she texted Mr. Viner back, he told her to give her phone to the sub because she was texting in class. Marie's love for ghosts really came to bite her in the butt that day.
something that people will learn very quickly is to never doubt Marie. Sadly, it took me a while to learn this lesson. Freshman year, Marie and I had a bet that whoever would do better at that week's CDE would get a box of Mike and Ike's. After losing about 8 boxes of Mike and Ike's, I figured I wasn't going to win. Marie has always been able to accomplish anything she puts her mind to. Whether it is in FFA or in life, no challenge is too big for Marie to accomplish.
Clearly, there's a lot you could say about Marie. However, I'll just say a few more things. Marie has always had an energy and a way about herself that has been contagious to the room. Every day, she strives to better herself, whether it's in the classroom, running, FFA, or in life. She refuses to lose and refuses to let anybody else feel like they lost. That is why I know she was successful in being one of your state officers. Now please help us welcome to the stage to give her retiring address entitled Smile.
Someone who has a love for FFA that's stronger than her love for goats.
Our friend and your 2017-2018 Kansas FFA Secretary, Marie Reveles.
Do you remember when you were a young child, perhaps preschool or younger? I remember my daily checklist consisted of popping straight out of bed, being fed a delicious breakfast, and then playing outside all day long. The toddler life was so easy. Even in kindergarten, when they took away our snacks, our playtime, and forced us to take naps, we were living the dream. When I think back, my childhood was filled with laughter, snacks, and playtime. Life is meant to be lived with this kind of happiness every single day. And we have the choice to live like this every day. But in second grade, my days always looked the same. I would wake up each morning and beg my parents to let me stay home from school. After being told no, I would grit my teeth and suffer through another day. When I got to school, when I entered through those school doors, instead of walking laps around the gym, waiting for classes to start, I would sprint to the bathroom and hide. I'd rather wait here by myself than listen to a few mean comments made by girls in our class. During class, I would try very hard to go unnoticed. I wouldn't answer too many questions, would try to do my homework silently, and then read my book for the rest of class. I didn't want to give anybody any reason to make fun of me. And yet, even this routine didn't seem to work. Then came the worst part of my day, recess. I would try to find a spot all by myself and read my book, but I could never escape the unfriendly faces and voices that followed me wherever I went. And finally, after class, all I would hear were the promises to hang out
and the fun, exciting weekend plans being made, but was never invited to. I would go home and cry each night and ask the burning questions of why don't I have any friends? And why is this happening to me? I started to live my life in a shell, slowly losing hope that I would ever break this miserable cycle. One day, my dad invited me out for a walk to talk about my unhappiness in school. He explained to me the path of life would be hard, but because of my firm foundation in my faith, I would never have to walk this path alone. The thing I remember most about what he said is sometimes all you have to do is just smile. For the first time in a long time, I went to bed that night with a newfound positive outlook on the next day. I promised myself that no matter what happened, that I would be happy and that I would smile. The next morning started out great. But as soon as I entered through those school doors, I had the sudden urge to sprint to the bathroom again. But I remembered what I promised myself, and I forced a smile on my face, and I walked through those school doors as if nothing was wrong. That day was really tough, but each day after got a little bit easier. And soon that forced a smile on my face slowly started turning into a real, genuine smile. I started excelling in school again. I wasn't afraid to answer questions in class or to confidently read my book at recess. My perspective on life did a complete 180. Even though I was still living the same miserable school day, my choice to be happy is what changed my perspective. We have the choice to be happy in any situation, but there are so many outside forces and temptations that will challenge us in this mindset. Maybe we're struggling in school or with a certain teacher, and it's hard to enter with a positive attitude. Or maybe something simple as bad traffic on the way to school. But there is no way that these temptations can actually steal our happiness. We can give in to the negativity or respond with a cheerful heart. And only with a positive attitude can we overcome life's challenges. Take a few moments to think of all the times you smile today. Maybe you ate a really amazing breakfast, or woke up on time or slept in, or realized it's a beautiful day to be at Kansas FFA convention. These small moments will start to add up. Now, think of all the larger blessings in your life. Maybe it's your friends and family, your talents and hobbies, or unwavering love received from a pet. Make these lists every single time you wake up and before you go to bed. Make these lists when you are faced with a rough moment. Because through these lists, we have to realize that any negative in our life will never outweigh all of these blessings that we were gifted. There is good in every day. There is more than one reason to smile every day. And through these blessings in our life, we can choose happiness in any situation. In second grade, my parents shared so much love and joy with me. Without them, I would not be where I am today. I distinctively remember one day on a car ride home after a really bad day at school with my mom. After being picked last for a group project and sitting by myself at lunch and recess, my Mother's Day was hard in other ways. She overcomes the challenges of eating, talking, and walking every day. My mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis in her early 30s. This disease impacts her entire body from the inside out. After already dealing with a day of pain, she decided that we'd be taking a detour on our way home. After pulling out to a local pet shop, my heart started racing. I had been begging my mom for a hamster for at least 2 years. As we were walking in, she explained that she knew things had been hard for me in school, and that this hamster would give me something to look forward to each morning and each afternoon. Little did she know that this small act of letting me have a hamster helped change my entire outlook. Not only from the joy the hamster brought me, but because my mom, who had her own struggles, set those aside to share her love and joy and happiness with me. I now realize that my hard day in second grade is nothing compared to what my mom goes through daily. She makes sacrifices for me every day, but does it with a smile on her face. No matter where you are in life or what obstacles we face, we all have love to share with others. Once we realize that our own happiness is a choice, it'll be so hard not to share it. When we fill someone else's bucket, it'll be filling ours as well. But far too often, hate is spread in our world. Luckily for us, once we share that love, it gives the world back its hope. Maybe it's complimenting a classmate on something they worked really hard on, or building up a friend after a rough day. We should smile at those classmates that need it the most and become friends with those people that aren't deemed cool by our society. Every single person has love and happiness to share. Every single person deserves to feel important. And we can all give that to them by sharing our love. One small act of love can truly change a life. In life, we will encounter rough moments. But it is then our decision if we let that small moment define our entire day. We can give in to the negativity or choose to see the positives. We all have so many blessings to be grateful for, and we all have something that this world needs from us. We can truly change our own lives and the lives of others around us. Imagine a life with less stress, less hurt, less anger, and less pain. And all you have to do is just smile.
You make me smile like the sun, fall out of bed, sing like a bird, dizzy in my head, spin like a record, crazy on a Sunday night. You make me dance like a fool,
Marie, your punctuality and organization are something we can all admire. Thank you for willing to help with any task and being able to accomplish anything that you're handed. Thank you for your smile, which seems to be fed by a never-ending positive energy, which we will all remember you by. Love Eli, John, Quentin, Riley, and Skylar. Ladies and gentlemen, your 2017-2018 Kansas FFA Secretary, Marie Revelez. Please join me in welcoming a few people who have prepared Marie for her service and gave up their time with her so she could spend it with Kansas FFA members.
Mr. Straub and Mr. Albers, thank you for going above and beyond for each student at Hayes High School. Your passion for learning in youth is truly felt by the students and teachers. And thank you for your continued support of organizations like FFA. Because of this, my fellow classmates and I have followed our passions and pursued our dreams. Kansas FFA, please help me in honoring my principals, Mr. Straub and Mr. Albers. Mr. Reiner, thank you for pouring your endless knowledge and wisdom
into myself and my fellow classmates. You see potential in every single student and never let them settle for less than their best. Because of you, I want to become an agriculture educator because I see the difference you truly make in your students' lives. Thank you for your endless patience, time, and wisdom. Kansas FFA, please help me in honoring my advisor, Mr. Viner. Mom and Dad, thank you for always believing in me. You both have shown me what hard work and dedication looks like. You raised me with lots of faith and love. Because of you, I have never stopped reaching for my dreams, no matter how far they may seem. Kansas FFA, please help me in honoring my parents and presenting them with their honorary state degree.
Thank you for your continued investment in Marie and the FFA. This year would not have been possible without support from all of you. Members and guests, please join me in a final round of applause as these remarkable individuals exit the stage. We are honored and excited to introduce to you Kansas Governor Jeff Collier. Governor Collier is a fifth-generation Kansan from Hayes and is currently serving as the 47th governor of Kansas. He was sworn into office on January 31st, just 6 months ago. As a leader in Kansas, Governor Collier has demonstrated a commitment to premier leadership, personal growth, and career success. In addition to his current role, he has demonstrated leadership through his service in the Kansas legislature and serving as a White House Fellow for Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. Governor Collier is a surgeon by trade and has volunteered his career expertise in dangerous war zones. And personal growth as governor, he has traveled across the state, meeting with farmers, ranchers, and agribusinesses, learning how his administration can better serve our state's largest industry. Please join me in welcoming him to the stage for a special introduction.
Good evening. Come on, we got to do better than that. Good evening. Yeah. You know, there are going to be 2,200 FFA members. Oh, man, I did it already. There'll be 2,200 FFA members here over this weekend. What a fantastic turnout. And it was really dramatic as what is happening here at K-State and what's happening here in Kansas. And I'm really honored to be here. You know, this is the 90th one, the 90th convention. And, you know, Kansas has over 9,500 FFA members across the state. Something is happening here. And I really believe it's because we're the true heart of America, that Kansas is the center of America, and where some of the best things in America start right here. And I believe it's starting right here in this room tonight. You know, 90 years, and I really like what you have on your pins. I can. We will. That's how you change the world. And that's why it's so exciting to be here tonight. But before I talk about our very special guest, I want to mention a couple of things about Kansas and a couple of things about Kansas agriculture and what you mean to our future overall. You know, the Kansas ag industry, it's number one. It's $67.5 billion to the Kansas economy. It's hundreds of thousands of jobs. It is the future. It's the backbone of our state. And it's done so much for making Kansas the true heart of America. But as this audience is aware, we are in Kansas ag, we can be world beaters. And we're world beaters because of a couple of things that you are involved in now and which I think are going to change the world in the future. Let's talk about those. One of those is technology, and the other one is about that spirit of service, that I can, we will. You know, technology is taking over in Kansas and in Kansas agriculture. And what you see happening now in terms of being able to use technology to preserve the Ogallala aquifer and to restore that is fantastic. and to use that technology to feed the world and to grow our own economy is huge. That technology that's here is changing the world. You know, almost 75% of the world's companies in the ag health industry are based right here along the animal health corridor. And as that technology grows, as NBAF grows over the next few years, you're going to see the real center of the world in this industry is going to be based right here in Kansas. And that's where part of your future is. It helps us change the world. But there's another thing that I think is truly exciting about what you are doing. I've been going around to high schools and colleges across Kansas for several years, and I've been kind of quiet about doing it, but I've been talking to people about service and listening to what students are doing. And every place I go, Kansas students are performing unbelievable acts of service. They do it when nobody's looking. That's because you care, and that's how you change the world. And it really is starting right here in Kansas. And whether you know it or not, the rest of the world is actually watching you right here in Kansas. I volunteer in a lot of war zones around the world. And one of them, you know, whenever I would go, they'd ask, you know, who are you? I'm Dr. Jeff. Where are you from? And I'd say, Kansas. And they'd say, that's where the wheat comes from. I was in another country in the middle of a war zone, and they asked, where are you from? I said, Kansas. They said, that's the real America. It's not Hollywood. It's not New York. It's Kansas. It's the heart of America. That's how the rest of the world believes in you. And I truly believe that you are going to change the world. And so I'm just really excited to be here and to be with you here tonight. And one of those things is because of a very good friend that I've made, and that is Secretary Sonny Perdue. Now, Sonny Perdue you're going to love this guy when he speaks. You're going to love this. But Sonny has really been a true leader since he was a kid. You know, he grew up in Bon Air, Georgia, and he ended up in the U.S. military, served abroad, and served. And then he volunteered when he came back, and he opened his veterinary practice, and he was practicing here. He volunteered. He volunteered in his community. He made a difference. And as he kept making a difference and kept serving, they asked him to do more. And they asked him to do more. And he ended up as governor, a two-term governor. And now he serves as our Secretary of Agriculture. And believe me, this is a guy that believes in you. And he believes in service and how special America is. And I'll tell you what, as a doctor, you know, a heart, there's a little part of a heart. It's where the fibers are there. They're called Purkinje fibers. And that's what starts that beat going on in your heart. And I really believe that Kansas is the heart of America. And I know you do too. And right now, the place where those little heartbeats are coming from, they're coming from this room with the FFA of Kansas. Fantastic 90 years. Let's give a big, rousing welcome to Secretary Sonny Perdue.
Thank you, Governor Collier. Give it up again for Governor Collier. Thank you, a real friend of agriculture. Well, hello, Kansas FFA. I've been looking forward to getting here with you guys tonight, and it's been so much fun being in Kansas this week, and start off a very warm welcome on Monday, on Memorial Day, and had a nice rain last night, so it's really good to be here with you, and your 90th convention. If you follow me on Twitter, you might know that I'm rather fond of FFA. You'll see a lot of your colleagues across the country there on Instagram and Twitter. And we love the fellowship with young people, FFAs, 4-Hers across the country. And I'm happy to be here with you tonight. One of the things I commonly tell you all is that by virtue of being in the FFA, I know already that you are leaders. And many times we talk about when adults talk to senior adults talk to young people your age, they said, you're the future leaders. And I like to clarify the fact that you're not just future leaders. I consider you leaders now, and I want to tell you kind of how you're proving your leadership. You're proving your leadership by your actions and by your service. For instance, you know that your 90th convention is this week, and how are you celebrating that 90th convention? You're using that number as an inspiration to package 90,000 meals to feed Kansans. I think you deserve an applause for that. You know, in this land of wonderful bounty, we would like to think that no one goes to bed hungry. Sadly, that's not true. And not only are you recognizing that, you're doing something about it by proving that leadership, by confronting the challenge of hunger. Many of us may look the other way, but you've chosen to make this an action item, and you cannot ignore the need because, once again, you lead and you're leaders. You're proving also your leadership by your aggressive outreach and growth. You're not steady, stable, satisfied with the status quo. This past year, you've chartered 17 new FFA chapters. That's an accomplishment that deserves applause as well, because you're growing. You may know no entity, organization, public, private, can remain status quo. You're either going up or you're going down, and I'm happy to report that Kansas FFA is continuing to rise. You're proving your leadership through scholastic achievement. Did you know that 429 of your members from Kansas applied for national FFA scholarships? That puts Kansas 5th in the national totals. But here's the important number, though. You like to be 5th, but out of those 429 applications, 118 members from 81 different chapters received a combined total of over $151,000 in scholarships, second in the nation. Congratulations. Not only leaders, but smart leaders as well. You're proving your leadership through innovation and national recognition. You may know that one of your own, Austin Nordyke from Hugoton, yeah. Oh, let's give Austin a shout out there. How about it? Austin was a national finalist for American Star in agribusiness. How did he do that? He started a lawn care business when he was just in the 8th grade as part of his FFA supervised agricultural experience. Wasn't just experience, let me tell you. You know, there are plenty of teenagers who mow a few lawns in the summer for spending money. Austin used his leadership and management style he learned in FFA to build a thriving lawn care business that now serves 65 customers in southwest Kansas. I hope Austin wouldn't mind you telling me telling you that his business has earned over $100,000 since he started in the 8th grade. Way to go, Austin. That's some spending money there. Austin is now a student at Wichita State University studying engineering technology management. So congratulations again, Kansas FFA. One of your own rose to be a national finalist for the American Star in agribusiness. So the point is, you are proving your leadership in FFA, and it is a great organization in which to grow and nurture those leadership qualities that I believe reside in all of you. Your actions show that you've got the capacity to be leaders right now, not someday, but today in your own communities. And I want to challenge all of you to look around and see the needs around you in your communities and make it sure that you fill that need. Now, if you'll allow me to move in sort of the heart of my message tonight, I'd like to put our minds and hearts and thoughts into a more reflective and a reverent mood. You know, this last Monday, we celebrated as a nation Memorial Day. That day, as we now celebrate as Memorial Day, was originally called Decoration Day. It was a day on which people would decorate graves with flowers, wreaths, and flags. You may know that the first widely observed Memorial Day was just a few years after the bloodiest war in our nation's land, the Civil War. The Civil War which pitted brother against brother. 150 years ago, on May the 30th, 1868, the first widely observed Memorial Day ceremony was held in Arlington National Cemetery. Several thousand gathered to commemorate the sacrifices of the Civil War soldiers. Following the ceremony, 5,000 participants helped decorate the graves of more than 20,000 Union and Confederate soldiers who were buried there. Ohio Congressman and future GUP President James Garfield delivered a speech that included these inspiring words, and I'd like to quote, "We do not know one promise these men made, one pledge they gave, one word they spoke, but we do know they summed up and perfected by one supreme act the highest virtues of men and citizens. For love of country, they accepted death and thus resolved all doubts and made immortal their patriotism and their virtue." Memorial Day is a day to remember and reflect on those who made the supreme sacrifice for their nation, for you and for me. I was honored on Monday to be with Governor Collier, Congressman Marshall at Fort Riley as a solemn ceremony acknowledging Memorial Day there. But the most moving part of that was having 5 Gold Star families there present. These are families who lost loved ones, husbands, fathers, wives, mothers, brothers, and sisters. And they sat there, some with tears in their eyes, because Memorial Day for them is every day. They've lost that loved one who sacrificed their lives, gave the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom and liberty. So let me tell you about 2 memorials tonight. One is for men who died in World War I. The other is for men who died in World War II. Out on the large patio just outside my office and the USDA office in Washington, D.C., is a memorial dedicated to and inscribed with the names of 69 men who left voluntarily the USDA to serve in the military during World War I. These 69 men lost their lives during that war, never to return to the USDA. With the outbreak of World War I, With the outbreak of World War I, Willis entered the military service and eventually accepted a commission as an officer. In his last letter home, Captain Comfort wrote these to his parents. Listen closely. If it should happen that I receive the highest of decorations, one of those little wooden crosses now dotting the fields of France, I want you to meet it as cheerfully as I shall. I no longer fear death. I have seen something of it, and it's not the worst thing that can happen to one. I think I can meet death with a smile, and I want you to feel the same about it. Captain Willis Edward Comfort, a Kansan, was killed in France on July 18, 1918. His remains were returned to the United States 10 years later and are now in Sunset Cemetery right here in Manhattan, Kansas. Harry Henry Hubbard was born in Garnett, Kansas. He graduated from Kansas City Veterinary College and had a veterinary practice. He came to work for USDA in 1917 as a veterinary inspector in the Bureau of Animal Industry. He served several campaigns in France and Germany. The horrible weather and disease on the field took as many casualties as the bullets and bayonets. Harry Henry Hubbard died from pneumonia on the field in Germany. His body was returned to the United States from Germany to Garnett Cemetery in Garnett, Kansas. And finally, the third of these Kansas, Harris Earls Petrie, was born in Lincoln, Kansas. He worked for the Bureau of Public Roads at USDA. In 1917, he was granted a furlough from the USDA to enter the military in aviation. He was trained at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and commissioned as a first lieutenant. Listen to his story. The account of Lieutenant Petrie is one of the stories recorded in the Legends of Heroism. On the morning of September 26, 1918, Lieutenant Petrie was flying alone behind enemy lines. He spotted a German aerodrome. That's a small airfield with 7 enemy aircraft in the air all ready for action. Lieutenant Petrie flew into the middle of the enemy formation with his machine guns blazing, destroying at least 2 enemy airplanes. 3 times he dodged the enemy fire and retreated to circle back and back again. After an over hour engaged in a heated dogfight, Lieutenant Petrie was overcome by the vastly superior forces and crashed in flames. Local French villagers watched in awe as Lieutenant Petrie doggedly charged the enemy again and again. Because of their account of the battle, Lieutenant Petrie was posthumously awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. Young people, these heroes hail right here from the great state of Kansas. And I want you to keep these 3 in mind as I tell you about another memorial. This one is to World War II, and it's right outside this very building. In the center of the circular drive, in the front of this auditorium, is a memorial that honors the sacrifice and service of students and faculty during World War II. There's something special about this memorial. Excuse me. It's not a statue. It's a large pair of dog tags that have been polished to a mirror finish. Dog tags, as you may know, are issued to all military personnel and are to be worn always, especially when going into combat. The dog tag contains certain identifying information of the person wearing it, its primary purpose to identify one who's killed in combat. The memorial outside is named Tags of Honor. It consists of 2 large, highly polished tags. It's unique in that the dog tags have no name and no inscription. When you pause to gaze at the memorial, what you see is your own reflection. So I have an assignment for here while you're here at this convention. I'd like for you young people just to take a few minutes to walk outside and look at that memorial. See your face in those polished dog tags. Pause for a moment, reverently, and put everything else aside. Take your headphones out of your ears and stop your conversation. Gaze at those dog tags and make it personal. Reflect on the fact that you are the one for whom men and women through generations have given their lives. I want you also to recognize the stark reality that some of your FFAers, some right here in this hall tonight, may be counted among that great throng one day. For you see, your leaders, and some of you will enter military service. Some of you may make that supreme sacrifice as patriots who will give their lives for their country. In every generation, evil raises its hideous head to strike against freedom and liberty. In every generation, America rises to meet that challenge. From the days of our fledgling nation at Lexington and Bunker Hill to today in places like Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Somalia, and even here on American soil, Americans continue to pay the price of freedom with their own blood. So young people, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here with you on this very special occasion of your 90th annual FFA State Convention. Thank you also for pausing with me for just a few minutes on this Memorial Day week to reflect on the patriotism and sacrifice and what some of you may be called to do one of these days. For we all know that freedom is not free. Your leaders who will lead us forward in advances in agriculture and science, but you will also stand firm in defending the precious liberty of America under God's grace. I know that because you're FFA. I'm so proud of all of you, and may God bless you. May God bless the Kansas FFA, and may God bless America. Thank you.
Secretary Perdue, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be with us here at the 90th Kansas FFA Convention. Your commitment to serve is shown through your time in the service, and your focus of priorities on economic sustainability, service to taxpayers, and a desire to produce a safe and secure food supply show that agriculture can and will continue to overcome the challenges of a future generation. It is an honor to have someone who has had such an experience in agriculture and who will continue to be influential in the policies of our industry. Thank you for your words of wisdom.
Thank you, sir.
The best part about an adventure is that no two adventures will ever be the same. Each adventure encompasses its own unique opportunities with its own set of challenges and exciting times. The Kansas FFA Association gives the opportunity to experience these unique adventures as we go about our growth and find our successes. We welcomed new chapters, recognized top creed speakers, heard from our Kansas FFA officer candidates, and listened to a moving message. Throughout the rest of the week, let's continue to celebrate the adventures of FFA members across the state. Let's use these adventures as an inspiration to overcome the difficulties of our own adventures. Will my fellow officers please join me on stage? Madam Secretary, do you have record of any further business which should now be transacted?
Yes, I do, Mr. President. Stop by the SAE Fair tomorrow, starting at 9 a.m. Don't miss the second session of the 90th Kansas FFA Convention tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. We will represent the Kansas Farm Bureau Community Grants, recognize the Building Communities National Chapter Awards, introduce the Kansas FFA Foundation Board, congratulate the Leadership Information Team winners, award the KAAE essay winners. Welcome special remarks from our National FFA Eastern Region Vice President, Gracie Furnish, and hear the retiring address of your Kansas FFA Treasurer, Quentin Umpenauer.
Thank you. Does any member know of any new or unfinished business which should properly come before this session? We are about to adjourn this, the opening session of the 90th Kansas FFA Convention. As we mingle with others, let us be diligent in labor, just in our dealings, courteous to everyone, and above all, honest and fair in the game of life. Fellow members and guests, join me in a salute to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I now declare this the opening session of the 90th Kansas FFA Convention adjourned.
I am capable, we are unstoppable. It starts with you, it starts with me. Shape the future, aspire greater. It starts with us, it starts with we. Together we stand, united together. We better this land, better this land. Rise up to the challenges, strive for greatness. I can, but together we will. I can, but together we will. I can, we will. Be the change we want to see. I can, we will. Step up and leave a legacy. promise of better days. I can, we will, be the change we wanna see. I can, we will, step up and leave a legacy. I can, we will, be the change we wanna see. Be the change we wanna see. Step up and leave a legacy. We're all different, we're all unique, but when we come together, we can't be beat. Create a bigger impact. In fact, if I believe we can, we will be the change we wanna see. I am powerful, you are powerful. Add it up and we're unstoppable. Together we're stronger than as individuals. Achieve a common goal. Unbelievable.